Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. This headline from Decrypt, I think, pretty well sums up where we are in terms of crypto market performance globally. The headline reads as follows: Crypto sentiment split between bull trap or bottom as Bitcoin nears $23,000. So my position is that all I need to do, and I certainly do, is have patience, because it's inevitable that XRP is going to rally to a new all-time high. That's my personal opinion. And I don't pretend to know exactly when it's going to happen. But even if you're looking at short-term market performance, or maybe what's going to happen in the calendar year of 2023, outside of a wild card event, I'm at a point where I just suspect this year is not going to be as bad as what we saw last year. And there are a number of reasons for that I've been talking about recently, so I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but having to do with, even if you just probabilistically, what happens in a major down year like we had in 2022 for stocks and crypto. Well, historically, strong majority of the time, you're going to see a much more positive year. So even if you just look at that in a vacuum, outside of the specifics of what's going on in the world, but if you do look at what's going on in the world, it actually, just set technical analysis aside, it actually doesn't paint that bad of a picture. I want to share with you this article. I'll do it a little bit later in the video, but this is from the Daily Hodl, and it's sharing analysis from Mike McGlone, who is a pretty well-known strategist with Bloomberg, and he had an analysis here that I thought it was thoughtful. I thought that he had a pretty good perspective in terms of what's going on headwinds on a macro scale. And you'll see, I think, by the end of this, why it actually makes a lot of sense. But before going further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And as I record this, XRP is at 40 cents, Bitcoin at 22,764 bucks. Market cap for the asset class still a little over $1 trillion, and Bitcoin dominance at 41.72%. So pretty much the same as yesterday. But there is anticipation for many that even in the short term, we're going to be seeing a big move to the upside, and the market moves in tandem. What do you think this is going to mean for XRP? Because again, I think if you fast forward a certain amount of time, the idea that you can buy XRP today for 40 cents is going to be unbelievable to people. Fast forward a decade, tell them that you were able to purchase, if you so chose to, XRP at 40 cents because you were in the markets and paying attention. They'll be wishing they had that opportunity. That's my suspicion here. So I want to share with you what some people are having to say, including a couple individuals a bit more on the bearish side that were shared within this Decrypt article. But first, let me start with this. This is something that wasn't in the article, but I'm a big fan of chart analyst Credible Crypto. I think he's one of the better ones out there. And he shared the following just last night. He said, this doesn't look, so he's talking about Bitcoin here, this doesn't look like the end of our rally just yet. Local price action looks like consolidation before we continue our pump to $25,000 plus. And so sure, certainly since yesterday, we're moving more or less sideways since then. So he thinks that it's consolidation, and we are going to see a move above that level. And he's certainly not the only one. Here's a tweet from another chart analyst who I'm a big fan of. Goes by the name Income Sharks, shared the following with his 379,000 followers. And he said, hashtag Bitcoin. Bears stopped using charts to prove their point because there's nothing bearish about them. They have resorted to name calling, bull trap, scam pump, or manipulation. And so I'll acknowledge that I do see a lot of those types of claims. And Income Sharks, he keeps highlighting Il Capo as one of these individuals who is just basically like a perma-bear. Not literally a perma-bear because he has been bullish, but my gosh, he's continued to be bearish even throughout the last few weeks of very positive price action. And he thinks that what's going on right now is a bull trap. And he didn't share a chart, but he wrote the following, made a big claim, and didn't really, that I've seen anyway, didn't articulate why he's saying what he's saying here, but he has 710,000 followers. So as he's been mega bearish, and fair enough, maybe fine, if he's right, he's right. But as he's been mega bearish, his follower count has like doubled in relatively short order. Because I tell you, when you get that negative sentiment, people want to feed off of that. But then in mega bull markets where everyone's euphoric, it's the exact opposite. So he just maintained the negative sentiment out there. And if he's right, credit where it's due, fine. We'll see if that comes to pass. But again, I'm not seeing the explanation of why he's saying what he's saying. So he tweeted out, I've been checking charts all this time, avoiding noise from Twitter. The way the upward movement is happening, the way higher time frame resistances are being tested, it clearly looks manipulated. No real demand. Once again, the biggest bull trap I've ever seen, but they won't trap me. Okay, well, if he's right and price goes down, then happy to give credit where it's due. But he doesn't articulate what the manipulation is. He doesn't explain it. That's a big claim when you've got almost 750,000 followers. I would love to know what that is. I mean, if you're looking at, in terms of volume, volume looks normal to me. I mean, here, 24-hour volume for Bitcoin, 17.5 billion. And it was higher, obviously, when we were having the bigger moves to the upside. So where's the manipulation? If there's evidence, point it to me, and I'm absolutely open-minded, but I need to see what it is. Instead, we're getting no chart and a claim here. Just makes me kind of curious as to what the rationale is for this. Because again, and he was right too. So technically, after he was calling for Bitcoin lows of, and I can't remember what level it got onto back in like May of last year after the Luna collapse. So the Luna collapse caused this major spiral down that perhaps we may not have seen, certainly not to the levels that we saw. We may not have anyway. And so he was calling for these levels. He was being a bear back then to a notable degree, and he got credit for being right. And I'm like, well, yeah, your target was hit, but for a reason, it was a wild card event that you didn't see coming. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'll give you that part of the credit. You got it. But you didn't know that thing was going to happen that caused it. It's not like it was your technical analysis that resulted in it being correct. It's that there was a major capitulation event because Luna collapsed, and then it spread the contagion. So is what it is. Here's chart analyst Kaleo, and he's taking the opposite approach because, again, El Capo's saying, hey, one of the biggest bull traps ever, and then the bulls are going to get hammered because we're actually still in bear territory. Well, Kaleo says the opposite. He says, one of the biggest bear traps I've ever seen. And he does think that in short order, we are going to be seeing Bitcoin rocket above $30,000. And I don't want to go through the full technical analysis. Just follow him on Twitter if you want to check out what his actual thought process is on this. I read through this stuff, but I don't really enjoy, I like to minimize as much as possible, regurgitating the actual reasons for the technical analysis. It doesn't sound as fun to me. I'm more curious about looking at a broad range of people that I think are, reputable, and just kind of getting a broad range of ideas from technical analysis out there, from people that do analysis from a fundamental perspective, from entities that do on-chain analysis. I like to just get a ton of opinions, and it helps me to form an idea of what might be right. Because if there's a trend, at least from, if you're following reputable people, you can kind of spot something. And that's why it's useful to me. That's why I like to do this. I have no actual interest in doing my own technical analysis whatsoever. That would be endlessly boring. But we all have our own interests. I saw the blockchain backer. He was incredible chart analyst, obviously. And he was on the chain channel, and I think that's where I heard him say this. But he's like, if I had to report crypto news, and I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, if I had to report crypto news instead of chart analysis, it would just bore me silly, effectively. And those are my words, not his. But that's the message that he was conveying. And I was thinking, totally respect that, because if I had to do chart analysis every day, oh my God, I would no longer want to run my damn channel. So it's just, I'm glad that we all have different interests and stuff like that. And that's all to say, I'm glad they're doing what they're doing. And the ones that are good at it, I value their opinion, which is why I follow a lot of these people. It doesn't mean they're all right all the time. But again, for me, it's about having a bunch of data points. You could look at each analyst as a data point effectively, and then see if you can spot a trend in terms of what the expectation is. And so as long as you're not using data points that are a bunch of bad data points, meaning really bad chart analysts, then you can kind of glean something out in terms of potentially what's more probable than not. Because when it comes to analysis, technical analysis in particular, it's more about probability of outcomes, not certainty, not even always a specific timeline. And then you also have this from Jim Cramer. He wrote a few days ago, the manipulation higher of crypto shows you this is truly a sham market. Now, if that isn't making you bullish, I don't know what the hell is going to make you bullish. So we'll see here. Now, as far as this, and I did think that this was a truly thoughtful analysis. This is a story from the Daily Huddle. Bitcoin recovery unlikely to be easy, warns Bloomberg strategist Mike McGlone. Here's why. And he's talking about stuff like on a macro level, more so than just technical analysis. But check this out. Bloomberg Intelligence senior macro strategist Mike McGlone says Bitcoin's road to recovery comes with big challenges. McGlone tells his 54,400 Twitter followers that Bitcoin may be forming a bottom similar to 2018, but he warns the macroeconomic conditions are now less favorable than they were back then. And he said, quote, Bitcoin's roughly 80% drawdown to the 2022 low about matches the 2018 bottom, but a key difference is global liquidity is contracting. With the Fed and the greatest number of central banks in history still tightening, it's unlikely a trough and recovery for the asset referred to as the greatest horse in the race will be that easy, end quote. So he's just noting here that yes, you saw a drawdown kind of similar to what you saw with the previous market cycle. In this case, if you look from top to bottom, about 80% drawdown, somewhere thereabout. But what he's noting here is this is a different environment. You know, because there was easing back then. You know, you're talking about a reduction in interest rates, whereas right now, what you've seen through 2022 was a massive increase, consistent rates through increased rates of rates throughout the year. But even that could paint a good picture. And here's why. So check this out. Piece continues. McGlone says the Fed is likely to remain hawkish through June, and that will create downward pressure on risk assets like Bitcoin. But he says Bitcoin may be showing strength against rate hikes. Quote, our graphic shows the potential for a Bitcoin island bottom akin to 2018-2019, yet the primary headwind for all risk assets remains rising rates. So let's pause and note, spot on that he's clumping everything in one basket, which, even though it sounds silly on the surface, is absolutely true. Stocks and crypto move together. So yes. So when you're talking, whatever the risk asset is, the answer is yes. And then he says, the fact that when the crypto first dropped to $20,000 in 2022, the one-year Fed funds future was closer to 3.5% versus about 4.25% on January 17th, may show Bitcoin's divergent strength versus rate hikes. In 2019, when the crypto built a base around $5,000, the Fed was easing. Another 60 basis points of hikes expected into June is Bitcoin resistance, end quote. So a big part of what he's obviously pointing out here is that you saw, again, the rates were what they were back last year when Bitcoin first dropped down to $20,000. Now you've seen it surge above that level as high as a bit over $23,000 just the other day. And the the interest rates as a result of the Fed hikes, much higher, obviously. In fact, I pulled this list up just for those of you that are curious and want to look at your screen here. I mean, these were all of the 7 hikes from the Fed in last year. So the first one was in March, and it was 0.25%. Then the next one was 0.5%, and then the rate increased though. And then the next one was 0.75%. The next one was also 0.75%, and then the next two after that were each 0.75%. But then at the end of the year in December, and this is what got a lot of people excited. Yes, there was an increase, but it was less of an increase. Instead of 0.75%, which is 75 basis points, it dropped to 50 basis points, or 0.5%. So while the rate was still increasing, Bitcoin and crypto markets are like, we don't care, I don't give a damn, rocketed, absolutely rocketed for the first few weeks. And again, many people think that it's not over, but you can see the broader point that he's making is, yes, this is the environment, and it's a bit more hairy of an environment compared to what you saw several years ago, if you look at 2018 and 2019. But even so, if you look at what's happened very, very recently, Bitcoin's still responding positively. And if you're anticipating that, rates are, even if they're still going to increase in the future, which seems probable, I don't think they're just going to drop down to zero. And so maybe he's right. Maybe it does go through the first half of the year. You're still seeing increases. Well, what's the next one going to be? Probably not 75 basis points. They already just did the last increase again was 50 basis points. They're going to go back in the other direction. I don't think so. Especially when you see that inflation actually, data shows it is being tamed, even if it's taking a while. So what are they going to do? Well, either it's going to be 50 basis points or 25 basis points. That's what's most probable. So especially if you see it continue to decline, what do you think that's going to do to markets? Like people, that's going to excite them. So look, I'll just say this. The Fed's not going to raise rates forever. I don't pretend to know exactly when they're going to stop, but it's going to happen. And so For the everyday person, I think what just matters is the same thing that's always mattered. You have exposure to the markets, whether it's stocks, whether it's crypto, whatever you're into, and you let the rest of the world out there do what they do. It's messy. The Fed shouldn't have this type of control of the markets, but they do. The world is what it is. People respond to it. And you have people making important financial decisions based off of this, and they're short-term thinkers, and they're getting in and out of stuff. Fine. The world's going to behave how the world's going to behave. I'm just saying for the everyday person, it just seems to me that the best path forward is to just have a long-term approach and not respond to the minutia day to day. Be aware of it so you can control your own emotions. I think that's important. But beyond that, it's like, So all that to say, despite, especially in 2022, how scary things looked on a macro scale, like it's not that all that's gone, and still there's concerns that to whatever degree maybe the crypto contagion even spreads. But it's certainly not looking worse than last year. If anything, to some degree, even if just a little bit, at least at the moment I'm recording this, you could argue that it looks a little bit better. Even if you're just looking at inflation. Again, it's awful if you look year over year. I know that. But it's going the right direction if you look month to month at least. So that's good. And again, Fed's not going to increase rates forever. What happens as they inevitably go the other way, we already know how humans respond. Which is why I started the video by saying one thing that I said was, all we need is patience, and this is why inevitably XRP is going to rebound. Because none of this has anything to do, the price action we've been seeing has nothing to do with long-term viability of XRP or the XRP ledger or crypto or pick your coin. None of this matters very clearly. So we need to be aware of it, but other than that, why would we give a damn? That's the exciting thing though. So like eventually the people are going to come back and they'll act just as ridiculous, but in the positive direction. They get euphoric and prices go higher. That's exciting to me though. So again, I never pretend to know exactly what's going to happen, but what I'm saying is, I'm arguing is, you don't need to. If you just understand some very simple things, I'm not a guru. I'm just a dude. I'm a dude on the internet. But what I'm insisting is you don't need gurus. I don't have anything to sell you. I don't have a course. I'm just telling you, take some very basic knowledge. Look at how humans behave, and you're good to go. Doesn't mean there's no risk. Of course, there's always risk investing in anything, and sometimes unexpected things can happen. But on the whole, you can figure out directionally what's most probable, right? Because we've got, with the stock market, over 100 years worth of data, and with crypto, over a decade. Just saying. So I'll continue to be patient because XRP is going to hit a new all-time high. I think it's an inevitability. That's my personal opinion. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.